It's a mythical crown. It doesn't contain gold or jewels, at least none that can be hawked, but many consider it to be the crown jewel of sports. In 1885, bare-knuckle champ John L. Sullivan put on a pair of boxing gloves and beat Dominic McCaffrey in what is now regarded as the first modern heavyweight championship bout. Through the decades, as the title passed from man to man in bars and on street corners, wherever sports fans gathered, the question was always asked, who is the greatest champion of all time?
Boxing fans sit around forever, wasting saliva discussing whether Dempsey could have beaten Lewis, whether Ali could have beaten Jeffries, whether, Fitzsimmons could have beaten so-and-so. The what if is part of the whole concept of boxing.
Of course, one of the all-time dream fights would be Rocky Marciano versus Muhammad Ali.
In August 1967, a clever former disc jockey named Murray Warner announced that he'd come up with a way to determine the all-time heavyweight champion. He would have a computer make the decision.
Now, from Warner Productions, a new era in sports. The Super Fight.
And how that event transpires is a story unto itself, and a good one.
At one time, the man who wore the heavyweight crown held sports' most respected title.
The heavyweight champion of the world, was a big deal in sports. In fact, it might have been the most coveted title, the most coveted crown in all of sports.
Sullivan established himself as a heavyweight champion of the world, the toughest man on the planet. And anyone wanting to claim that title had to go through the great John L. The lineal championship passed from Sullivan to Gentleman Jim Corbett to Ruby Bob Fitzsimmons, a transplanted Welshman, to the first African-American title holder, the always controversial Jack Johnson. Other great champions followed. Jack Dempsey and Joe Louis established standards of ferocity and excellence to which other fighters still aspire. Rocky Marciano and Muhammad Ali, both lineal champions, came to stand for polar opposites of substance and style. One representative of traditional American values, hard work and humility. The other seeming to embody the exuberance, flash, and noise of the youth culture born at the beginning of the 1960s. For some people, the name Rocky calls to mind a cartoon squirrel or a likable, slow-talking, fictional boxer. For others, the name evokes a real fighter, a man whose humble manner and meat-and-potato style and indomitable fighting spirit reflected the soul of post-war America.
His father was a poor Italian shoemaker who came over from Italy as a young man, became an American, served in World War I, but was very much an immigrant. And the fact that Marciano rose from that background to become heavyweight champion of the world, the most revered figure in sports in the early 1950s, well, he was living the American dream.
And he was a natural all-around athlete. He was great at baseball, football, track and field, and he was a great street fighter. Times
were different then. Today, you tell people how great you are. Everything is verbalized. In that day and age, it was a case of let your actions do your talking for you. The great Joe DiMaggio, did the same type thing. He was a quiet guy. He did all his talking on the ball field. Rocky Marciano was very much like that.
Rocky Marciano became an enormously popular figure in the 1950s. And There were a few reasons for it. He was likable. He was personable. He cared about the public.
It also was the age of the Friday night fights, the Gillette cavalcade of sports. And we saw him. It wasn't a secret. Like today, where on cable you'll see some of them, but usually on closed circuit, everybody saw him on network TV against the Roland Lestarses and the Rex Lanes.
Marciano was under 6 feet. He was short. He was one of the shortest, not the shortest, but certainly one of the shortest heavyweights that ever lived, around 5'10", 5'11". He had short arms. He had a short body, but he was very compact. He was extremely strong. He was very powerful. And what made Rocky Marciano great was a combination of his tremendous punching power, his tremendous heart, his tremendous, valor and courage in the face of danger, and his willpower to impose himself upon his opponent.
He was such a hard, diligent worker, and I can only compare it. He actually went into a mode of a monk, a religious monk, and he would get into a frame of mind where nothing would detract him. He had one goal in mind, and that was the person that he was training for that particular fight.
And he was a fighting machine. Wasn't a boxer. He just went in and slugged. Took one to give one. Take two to give one.
He was the basic slugger, in your face, all heart, bloodied, battered, and he'd come out and knock guys out. I never tried to imitate Marciano because you can't imitate somebody with that fortitude. You tried to fight like Marciano, you get killed.
He was just a relentless competitor who got himself so well conditioned and well tuned. He just refused to be denied. He was a very good puncher for a small man, but his determination was so great. He was a giant in the ring. In December of '49, they matched him up with Carmine Vingo, 6'4", up-and-coming fighter from the Bronx as well. Marciano stopped him in 6 rounds. And they gave him a real hard test in March of 1950. They put him against Roland Lestarze, who was also an upcoming fighter and also undefeated. Lestarze was a slick boxer, fast move in and out. Marciano was pressing him. Very close fight. Marciano won a split decision.
The thing that Marciano really had that made him a great puncher was something called leverage. If you watch him, he'd get in close, and if you watch the fight with Walcott, the first fight where he knocks Walcott out, the punch only travels a foot and a half. Walcott begins to throw a right hand, and Marciano in close just rotates his body, turns his hips, doesn't even move his arms at all. He just comes in and just turns and hits him with a right hand, and the fight is over.
And though he threw many punches that went this far, as he did with Joe Walcott in their first fight, a lot of them were just arm swings to break something, hit something, particularly the other fighter's arms.
Roland Lestarze told me recently in a conversation, in the second fight, when he had with Marciano stopped him in 11 rounds. He said he pressured me so much, hit me in the body, hit me in the arms. I urinated blood after the fight. He just swore the hell out of me. I had nothing left in 11 rounds. I couldn't make it. 10 rounds I might have made, but I couldn't make 15 rounds with him.
Mostly people were running away from him. They didn't want to get hit by him. So most of the fighters who fought him wound up fighting on the retreat.
I think the most underrated aspect of Marciano's boxing ability was his ability to get inside without taking enormous punishment.
What Marciano was able to do was he was able to sidestep and move and cut off and use angles where a 24-foot ring suddenly became a 12-foot ring and suddenly became a corner where you were trapped.
By 1951, his first serious fight, which was going to get him a title shot, was against Rex Lane from Texas. And Marciano did something that you very rarely see in that fight. He knocked the guy out while the guy was standing up. And from that point on, he was a real superstar. His manager said, "Move out of the YMCA, you don't live here anymore. You're a champ now, you're on the way to championship."
The new champ, Rocky Marciano of Brockton, Mass. Rocky KO Jersey Joe Walcott in the 13th round at Philadelphia.
When Rocky fought for the heavyweight championship of the world, here I am at ringside. I'm an 11-year-old little brother of a guy in there that I think there's no human being that could ever beat my brother. And I see him in the first couple of rounds against Walcott literally getting pushed around pretty good, and I'm thinking, wow, you know, what's going on here?
Held in the first round by the aging Jersey Joe Walcott, the 28-year-old ex-GI came back strong. In a drama-packed 13th, a right-handed jaw crusher knocked Jersey Joe loose from his senses and his title. Exit Walcott. Enter Rocky Marciano.
Well, last night I fought a real true champion in Jersey Joe Walcott. He proved to me what a champion is made out of. I hit him with plenty of good punches, and he took them very good, rolled with most of them. He's a very smart fighter, a durable fighter, and a very great champion. I only hope that I could be as good as him.
Marciano was a fun-loving, loyal, dedicated family man and friend outside of the ring. Inside the ring, he was a relentless aggressor.
I used to go up there to camp when he was training for a fight, and he used to like to catch. He was a catcher in baseball and might have made it to the major leagues. But we'd get the ball and glove and go down by the swimming pool, and he'd set up and make an imaginary plate, and he'd sit down and he'd give me signs, and I'd throw the curveball or the screwball or the fastball, and we'd strike one, and then we were doing this maybe a half hour into it one day by the swimming pool of Grossingers, and all of a sudden I hear Charlie Goldman, his trainer, with the little derby and the cigar, and Bobby Goodman, what the hell are you doing? He ain't no baseball player. He's the champion of the world. Get the hell out of here. You know, so that was the end of our pitch-catch combo.
He defended his title 6 times and then, quite unexpectedly, walked away from boxing, never to fight again.
Marciano's last fight was in 1955 against Archie Moore in the fall. It was his 49th victory, and a lot of people felt that Marciano would continue. He was still young, he was still in his prime. He had 3, 4, 5, 6 good fights left in him. He decided not to. He decided to retire.
That I think he realized that eventually somebody was going to chop him up, somebody was going to stop him, and the 48-0, 49-0 was going to become a 49-1.
The reason Rocky retired from the ring was the fact that at the end of his career, when he went in the ring, he started to get this feeling that it wasn't a whole lot of fun, that even the odor, and you have to be an athlete or a boxer to understand there's a particular odor when you go into a gymnasium. And he started disliking that odor. And I think this was his first feeling of, you know what? We were brought up in a very strong Italian family. And in the Italian family, there's a little saying, don't embarrass me, no fa scumbari, don't embarrass me. And Rocky didn't want to embarrass his family, didn't want to embarrass himself. And losing a fight would be a tremendous embarrassment to him.
Marciano's record of 49-0, it's like Babe Ruth's record. 60 home runs. It's a magic number in boxing. And still, it stands.
Now there's a box off. Archie Moore loses to Floyd Patterson, who loses to Ingemar Johansson, who loses to Floyd Patterson. Floyd Patterson loses to Sonny Liston, and then a young kid out of Louisville. Young kid out of Louisville, Cassius Marcellus Clay.
Muhammad Ali was born Cassius Marcellus Clay in Louisville, Kentucky. At the age of 12, the gangly, precocious youngster took the first step on the road to the heavyweight championship of the world. The young Clay had several inspirations, the least likely of whom was the then reigning heavyweight champ, Rocky Marciano.
He had mentioned as a young black kid from Kentucky, Louisville, Kentucky, that he would hear the name, he'd be listening to the radio, and he would describe it this way. There was this guy, Rocky Marciano.
And Rocky Marciano was fighting somebody that night. It was about 9:30 Louisville time. There was a little rain drizzle outside. The car was crowded. All these black fellows were listening to the fight. And I asked them, could I listen? They didn't know me. Skinny 12-year-old kid, 13-year-old. I stopped and I listened. what inspired me to really want to be a heavyweight champion was when I heard the man say, and still the heavyweight champion of the whole world, Rocky Marciano. And I say he was a big influence in the start of my boxing career.
Clay quickly established himself as one of America's top amateurs. He capped an outstanding amateur career by winning a gold medal at the 1960 Olympic Games in Rome. Following the Games, he began his professional career with a win over a fighting cop named Tony Hunsaker. Ali's speed, elusiveness, and unorthodox approach to the sport, not to mention his colorful and outspoken personal style, both galvanized and horrified the boxing community.
I'm not going to knock him out. I'm going to whoop him.
I think Ali was the fastest heavyweight that ever lived. In a sense, I think because he had this tremendous speed, he didn't have to learn some of the tradecraft that other fighters did. Angelo Dundee once told me that Ali's flaw was that he was not a good infighter because his speed had been such, he had been such a fast-moving, quick fighter that most of his fight was carried on from the outside, from a middle or long range. So that's why a guy like Joe Frazier gave him trouble. That's why a guy like Rocky Marciano or a guy like Jack Dempsey would have given him trouble, because he just didn't know how to cope with a guy on the inside.
Ali was totally different. Ali was more of an arm puncher. This is the reason that he was never really a great puncher as a heavyweight. Very seldom would you see Ali hit someone with one shot and hurt him. It didn't happen very often. The reason was Ali, while he's dancing around, has his feet closer together, which means he stands up. If you watch Ali, his tendency was to stand up when he punched.
It's very hard to compare Ali with other fighters. You could say, for example, when comparing him to Joe Louis could box better than Ali. Joe Louis could punch harder than Ali. Joe Louis, was a better tactician than Ali. But Ali's speed was so huge that you could argue that Ali could beat Joe Louis consistently. Why? Because if Joe Louis had trouble with a guy like Billy Conn, well, then Ali is Billy Conn with 40 pounds more of muscle, more speed, and more power.
Clay's talent could not be denied. In 1964, he was matched with the reigning heavyweight champ, the glowering, menacing Sonny Liston. Liston retired in his corner at the end of the 7th round, sitting on his stool, gazing dumbfounded across the ring at the face of a new America.
Undefeated when he goes in the ring against Sonny Liston, undefeated when he comes out of the ring against Sonny Liston, except he comes out as Muhammad Ali.
The first long experience I had with him was in 1963 in the Garden when he was fighting Doug Jones, who gave him quite a fight. A lot of people who were there that night thought that Jones might have won the fight. I remember one time we went to him. We were in Houston at the Astrodome doing a fight with him and Buster Mathis, and tickets were slow. Ticket sales were slow, and I said, Champ, we really need something that's gonna spur this thing on. What can we do? And his eyes got big and bright, and he said, I got it. We'll make front page headlines, all the papers in the world. And I couldn't wait to hear the answer. I said, what is it, Ali? What is it? He said, you could have me kidnapped.
It's hard to believe now because Ali was so beloved and revered during the 1970s. But when he first became champion, he was a very unpopular figure. He was, in fact, Sports Illustrated at one point in 1966 called him the most hated figure in sport.
I knew that there wasn't a real bad bone in his body. I mean, this was a wonderful, caring individual that never changed. He, as time went on, he got even more caring and more special and more human.
Ali defended the title several times over the next 3 years. By 1967, he had run his undefeated record at 27-0. Many, including, of course, Ali himself, began to refer to him as the greatest of all time. In April 1967, at the height of the Vietnam War, a government clerk called for Cassius Marcellus Clay to step forward for induction into the armed forces. Ali, a devout black Muslim, refused to take that step.
Deposed heavyweight champion Cassius Clay at a federal court in Houston is found guilty of violating the U.S. Selective Service laws by refusing to be inducted.
It is a time when the unusual could happen in the 60s. It's a time of change, it's a time of turmoil, and one of those who gets caught up in it in his own way leads it is the now named Muhammad Ali. Refuses to step forward for the draft in Houston. They take away his passport. He's defrocked by the Babbitry and the boxing commissions, and he's out for 2.5 years.
Though banned from boxing, Ali was still considered the man by the majority of the public, and everyone knew that no man could truly claim the title until he met and defeated Ali in the ring.
That whole period of looking for some place that would allow him to fight, or getting some group that would stand behind him so he could continue his career. I mean, it was just so painful to see him going through that period when he was just starting to approach his peak years.
I think Ali transcended boxing to become, an icon of his time.
There is a radio championship Murray Warner is putting on with that time-honored question, who could beat whom? And he rounds up 16 names, and they're going to box off to find a champion on radio.
The tournament would be broadcast on radio in the form of a simulated contest. The script for the matches was to be generated by an NCR 315 computer.
I've had a number of inquiries over the internet about whether the computers were capable from the 60s and 70s of doing a decent simulation of the boxers. And certainly they were. After all, in 1969, NASA put a man on the moon using these computers from that time. Simulation is a process whereby the computer is programmed to imitate or reenact activities in the real world. In order to simulate well or realistically, you have to study the particular entities or things that are involved in any given process so that you understand how they perform. For example, in this case, we're talking about boxers. What are the things that a boxer does? He throws punches, he moves, he bobs, he weaves, he crouches, he clinches. He has power, he has quickness of varying degrees. He has certain types of moves, things of that nature. Have to be identified, defined, quantified, put into these computer profiles. And then the computer, when it runs the simulation, it will actually refer to these profiles to get the numbers so it can compare them and see what the result of a particular action is.
In 1946, I remember this. I mean, I have it just documented. That's why I remember the year. I even wrote this process up in a notebook, which I still have. I still have those notes. After I started to list all these variables, we found that there were 129 of these variables.
Computerized! From the Magic City, the sun and fun capital of the world, Miami, Florida, through the incredible speed of the NCR 315 computer, Warner Productions proudly presents the all-time heavyweight championship tournament.
A Boston strong boy, John L. Sullivan, in a mythical match with the Cinderella Man, Jimmy Browning.
The Manasseh Mauler, Jack Dempsey, dream paired with the Brown Bomber and Jim Jeffries.
In Ali's first bout, he survived a knockdown to win a 15-round decision over Max Schmeling.
Moving forward, Jeffries drives another hard left to the body.
He stopped Ali in the 5th round.
I was an amateur boxer in the Chicago area when the radio shows came on. It was the great heavyweights and the great middleweights, the tournament and radio, narrated with the style of the 40.
Immediately out at the center of the ring.
Marciano marched through his side of the draw, beating Gene Tunney, Max Baer, and Jeffries. These victories carried him into the tournament final against the Manasseh Mauler. Jack Dempsey.
We followed them very closely. It was like because we're thinking, wow, now going up against all these great names, and let's see how the so-called experts, determine his place among the great. We knew where he should stand from day one, at the very top. We still feel that way very strongly.
Marciano won the title over Jack Dempsey. That made everybody happy except one guy, named Muhammad Ali.
Muhammad Ali doesn't take kindly, would be the way to say it, to having been beaten by Jim Jeffries. Remember, at that time, there also was a play on Broadway called The Great White Hope. And he identified with Jack Johnson, the man who beat Jim Jeffries. So he threatened to sue Murray Warner. If he had no quarrel with those Viet Cong, he certainly had a quarrel with Murray Warner.
Ali was so irate at the fact that he had not been crowned the greatest of all time that he actually sued the producer, Murray Warner. And he claimed that he was being defamed, in a sense, by having been defeated in this fantasy tournament.
To settle the lawsuit, he'll let this nice little radio series go to a conclusion, and Marciano wins. And then he'll take the winner, Marciano, and in a film, live with the two participants, he will pit Marciano and Muhammad Ali on closed circuit.
The Super Fight, the only two undefeated heavyweight champions in history, Rocky Marciano and Muhammad Ali, actually meet for the all-time heavyweight championship of the world. When for one time and one time only, the Rocky Marciano and Muhammad Ali, live on color film in a bout that was filmed in secret. There will be no second runs. The fight will never be seen on television or in newsreels. It's one chance and one chance only. Get your tickets now before they're sold out.
Hey, now you're going to be able to see Ali and Marciano. That was like gravy. That was like the cherry on the cake, because now you could see them.
In order to make the film, he sought out investors, but the idea of the way this was working with a computer and data and two real guys, investors were scared. I'm sure they were. I mean, you think about it. Back then, who would put their money into something? A wild scheme. This guy's got to be a con man. He eventually put up the house we grew up in. He put up the cars, vehicles we owned. He put up all the jewelry we owned. He mortgaged and pawned everything we owned. He believed in his vision so much that he was willing to risk it all to make it happen.
Well, the computer fight period was a time for him when of course Marciano, who had retired undefeated, was coming back for this super fight, and Ali was serious about it. He didn't want anybody to think that this little guy who weighed 187 pounds could really beat him.
When Marciano was approached about Super Fight, he took it very seriously. He was a serious guy. He was very earnest. He didn't take anything as sort of a lark or as a joke. Very serious, very earnest. And when he was approached about it, he got serious about it. He dropped 50 pounds. He went out and bought a new toupee.
There'd be write-ups in the paper. Marciano's getting ready. He's losing 25 pounds. Marciano's looking good. Even his toupee's looking good. Ali, who's been out of boxing now, I think this is early 69 for 2 years plus, is taking this seriously.
When the fight proposal came up to go against Muhammad Ali, Rocky did make one statement and made a great deal of sense. He said, I sure hope that I win this fight because, I never lost in the ring as a professional. It would be a lousy way for people to remember Rocky Marciano as getting beat by Muhammad Ali or anyone else.
They sparred 70 rounds. The sparring sessions were in part acting and in part actual real fights. The general idea was that they could throw body shots, as naturally thrown body shots, but that they would pull punches to the head. Certain results were scripted. For example, there were 7 different endings. There was a knockout by Ali, a knockout by Marciano, a decision either way, a draw. And so they filmed those. Those were really the only scripted parts of their actions. The rest of it was them going through, sparring the minute or so, setting up another shot, sparring again, and they did this over a period of days.
Oh, I remember hearing, because Dundee was there and several other people were there during the taping, that they took as many as 12 different potential endings. Ali winning some, Marciano winning some, Ali standing in the corner getting whooped, as he said, Ali whooping and cutting up, which was important, Marciano.
One of the stories that came out of the filming of the Super Fight was that Ali very quickly asked for a couple of extra dollars to go through the punishment that he was receiving to the body. He came to Murray Warner a couple of days into the sparring matches and said that Marciano had actually injured his arms and he had trouble lifting his hands, and therefore they needed to take a couple of days off. And I think that was tribute to Marciano's punching power.
Well, when they were shooting the Muhammad Ali against Rocky Marciano, Chris Dundee took me to the studio, and I actually took a picture with both of them, and these were 2 people that were larger than life, Rocky Marciano and Muhammad Ali. I was a 19-year-old, and I had long hair like a lot of people in the late 60s, and Ali says, I thought you were in jail. And I got up on my haunches and I looked at him like that. I go, me in jail, and I never had been in jail, thank God. And he goes, yeah. And I go, he goes, ain't you Sirhan? And I go, no, I'm not Sirhan. And then he realized I wasn't taking it as a joke. He was just joking. I was just a kid. And he goes, forget it. And
I have to tell you one great story that took place there. You remember the time, it was in the 68, 69, and there was turbulence going on in this country with the black-white thing. There was Vietnam. It was troubled times in this country. And obviously when these guys got in the ring, they would get a break. And I remember one time where the 2 of them were in a corner, actually sitting down on the floor, and they were literally sharing a grapefruit. Rocky was peeling it, broke it open, gave half to Muhammad Ali. And their conversation, you might think, would tend around boxing. It was all about this country, all about the black-white situation. It was all about the troubled times and what they could do as 2 guys that I'm sure a lot of people looked up. What could they do to make things a little bit better for this country? The respect that they both had for each other was something that you had to be there to understand and appreciate. And it was just absolutely one of the nicest things that I remember about Muhammad Ali.
And a few months later, a representative of Rocky Marciano came. I was undefeated, maybe 10 fights, 10 knockouts I had. They were interested in managing me. And my manager at the time, a small-time Cuban manager, he said, getting in with Rocky Marciano, that wouldn't be bad for us. And I thought about it. I go, whatever you want to do. And I don't know, he was only 47. A few months later, boom, he had an airplane crash and he died.
My father was really broken up when Rocky died in the plane crash. I remember my father sitting on the edge of his bed crying over it. And then when my father passed away, my mom giving me the heavyweight championship ring that Rocky had given back to my father.
When Marciano died in a plane crash, I was so crushed because I was a friend of Rocky's from the time I was a young teenager. And it was avoidable. That's the tragic part of it. He had a way of sometimes saying, sure, I'll show up to your affair, send me the money for a round-trip plane ticket, and I'll be there on such and such. Well, he tucked that money away somewhere and then try and jump a ride with a friend, which he did on this occasion, and so I consider that very avoidable.
We're talking about two of the greatest fighters ever. And it's just too tough a call for me to make.
No computer can determine the outcome of a fight. That's bunk.
I cut it short. Ali would have beat him. I believe Ali would have beat him.
It's speculative, and I don't speculate as much as I used to.
Too close to call.
I just see it as a TKO by Ali in the latter rounds.
You can only go by records, and last time I looked, Rocky Marciano was 49-0, 43 by knockout. Pretty tough record to compete with.
Who knows?
I've never predicted a fight in my life. I've never knocked anybody before a fight, and I'm certainly not going to start now.
Well, then that will have to be a time that I just quit moving, because no man in the history of boxing or now can really corner a fighter and keep him there unless he's got bad legs or he's a little old, and he have to. But he would, if you remember my fight with George Chuvalo, I was criticized for just deliberately for 15 rounds letting him beat me in the stomach and the sides. But if a man's strategy is to corner me in a round and corner me, wear me down, and then knock me out, then he's taking a big gamble, because if he don't corner me and if he don't wear me out, then he's in trouble. Mainly, you must realize this: anybody watching this show, or any who knows anything about boxing and real fighting, will tell you that before, not just Marciano, but any fighter, if he's in arm reach of me, he's hit, he's cut, he's bleeding, his face is puffed up, he can't think, his brains are shook up. And for a man to just keep cornering me and keep coming to me, then I just must quit punching or something in order to let him do it.
Suddenly, for a week straight, nothing was spoken about in my house anyway, between my brother, myself, my father, than the upcoming matchup between Rocky Marciano and Muhammad Ali. I was so concerned about getting a good seat, because it was definitely going to be a sellout, that I went to the Patchogue Theater on Main Street in Patchogue, Long Island, and sat through several showings of Jesse James Meets Frankenstein's Daughter, Billy the Kid Meets Dracula, and several other horrible, terrible monster movies, to be sure that I was there when the line started for the Marciano-Ali fight.
Walking into the theater, I think I can only compare it best by if you've ever played golf, and if you ever had the opportunity of having a hole-in-one, like I did once. Until you get to the hole, you don't really know if it's in the hole.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is our main event for the computerized all-time heavyweight championship of the world. Introducing the undefeated heavyweight champion of the world, the Brockton blockbuster, Rocky Marciano. And his opponent, the undefeated heavyweight champion of the world, Muhammad Ali.
And now this all-time heavyweight championship fight ready to go. There's the bell, and here's Guy LeBeau. Rocky Marciano, Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay in this, the classic championship fight. Uniquely, the two only undefeated heavyweight champions of the world. I'm rather staggered by the size proportions. Marciano about 5'11", Cassius Clay about 6'3", perhaps a little bit more. Marciano is the shortest man that Cassius has fought, and Marciano is looking at the tallest man he has ever boxed.
When that fight started, it was incredible, because everybody in the theater seemed to react as if this thing was absolutely for real.
The first thing that you notice is that the ring that they're fighting in is very small. My guess is that ring is only 16 feet square at the largest. This would have benefited Marciano tremendously, but there's absolutely no way that Ali and Angelo Dundee ever would have agreed to fight in a 16-foot ring. It'd be insanity for them.
Marciano has had 11 first-round knockouts to his credit. Cassius Clay has had 2, among them Sonny Liston. Off the ropes again. A little bit more than a minute gone by, round 1. Marciano will occasionally leap forward to nail his target. A good body rally by Marciano. And Muhammad Ali seemed to draw gasps of breath as he moved back to the center of the ring. The left jab scores for Muhammad Ali, and again. He's faster than usual in round one. With only 68 inches of reach, Marciano will have a little trouble communicating from time to time. Muhammad Ali has a reach of about 83 inches. Jabs and scores again, and quickly. Good left hand by Marciano. There's the bell ending round one.
After the first round, there was an innovation. There was essentially a teletype printout that the computer was telling us what happened in the round. What we had just seen was spitting out a teletype of what happened in the round, who was hurt, who had the advantage, what the scoring was, and who won that particular round. There was a round-by-round scoring. And as this teletype got played, several of the people in the audience would read the thing out loud. So as the rounds concluded and the people were screaming, it would suddenly go silent, and you would hear 15 or 25 different people reading out loud this teletype as the as the match went on.
Marciano is at 195. Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay is at 215. The aggressor, faster and throwing harder, but missing. Marciano doesn't like to waste too many punches. He's wasting a lot there. He says it saps his strength. Rocky has reaped nothing but the wind with all of the heavy artillery thrown thus far. And a surprise, Marciano goes to the straight-up jabber puncher this time. Apparently trying to coax Muhammad Ali into an exchange. He hasn't been able to do that from his haunches. Left slam, and he takes a left to the body, does Muhammad Ali. 1 minute gone by, round two.
Because of the size of the ring, you saw Ali throwing a lot more punches than he normally would. He had no other way to keep the opponent off of him because he couldn't really move around in basically what was a glorified phone booth. He would try to double and triple his jab and slide back, and every time he would take 2 steps back, he would find himself on the ropes.
And there's Marciano at his best. He's got his man locked in, hammering the arms and the body, and slickly Muhammad Ali out of danger. Speeding up his throwing, landing harder. Marciano is very good at pulling the head backward as the famed middleweight champion Jake LaMotta used to be. There's the bell ending round two.
When you're watching the fight, at the beginning you're saying to yourself, okay, this is make-believe. But as the fight progresses, and you see that there are times when Rocky backs Ali into the corner and really lets go with those left hooks to the body with gusto. You know, this is a guy who's enjoying being back in there. He's enjoying throwing those hooks. He's enjoying the feeling of power. And Ali himself, there are times when he really puts on the flash and snaps away. You know, the jabs of Marciano and the combinations of Marciano, tries to make him miss the way Ali made Liston miss. You know, those ridiculous miss by a quarter of a mile kind of shots. I think Ali comes a time when now he's respecting Marciano and he's measuring him and he's kind of saying, don't get too carried away, okay? And Marciano is, at other times, kind of testing Ali and says, come on, let's do it.
The fight itself just mirrored in the early rounds, the best of each. Ali dancing, jabbing, Marciano swinging, missing, and then hitting thunderous punches. In the clinches, Ali pulling him down as he always does. which we have to remember Ali was much taller than Marciano, and because he stood erect and Marciano crouched, it magnified. It looked at times like it was a 1939 World's Fair symbol.
Marciano, again, was the shortest heavyweight champion ever, and what he had to do was he had to get down underneath opponents' punches. He had his right shoulder back, and he would take his right shoulder and literally bend it down to his right and bend his knees at the same time. He would bend to his right and literally go underneath the jab coming at him. Ali said at some point in his own autobiography that he was very surprised at how tough it was to hit Marciano with a solid shot.
And he's moving Marciano around a lot more here in round 5. Marciano scored briefly with the left of the body just then. A good exchange. And Muhammad Ali lacerating the eyes with those short chops, and they're beginning to bleed again.
And then all of a sudden, Marciano gets cut.
As he did against Desert Charles. Nose. And now you've got the question, will the fight be stopped?
There should be no doubt now about the ability of Muhammad Ali to take punishment and give it when he's taking it. Using the right a little bit earlier now. And suddenly goes to the attack. And suddenly we have a stand-up fight. Typical Marciano holding with the right, peppering the body with the left. But out in the center of the ring where The Rock really doesn't want to be. This is round 8. Combinations all working for Muhammad Ali. He's got the broad attack going here. Really splattered. But he gets the left to the nose and the eyes. Marciano keeps the target in sight down below. A good look right here why these are the only 2 undefeated champions in the world. Clay Wilson, a knockdown, and Marciano down for a brief count. He appears all right. He will take the mandatory 8 count. It looked like a right to the jaw, but it was set up by a couple of shots to the body. About 30 seconds remaining, round 8. Marciano coming forward, remembering not to look hurt if he can help it. A bloody pulp. Not able to see too well. Taking a mashing to the face and head by Muhammad Ali, who cannot move in for the kill. He has to respect the bombs of Marciano. Making a good rally at the bell.
While the computer's still printing, let's take another look at the action that led to that knockdown. Ali kept a top pace with Marciano, still the relentless pursuer. But Ali, stabbing and hooking with that left hand, kept the price very, very high. Then as they turned and circled, with the left hand jabbing in there, the punch exchanges still going, there was a big overhand right that dropped in through the hole that wound up putting The Rock on the canvas. And here it comes. The Rock down. He's been cut. He's bleeding. And here's the bell, and here's Guy.
Marciano looks all right again, but the bleeding has not altogether been halted. The left draws a little bit more blood. The nose bleeding. Three times in his career, Marciano was close to a TKO because of cuts. Ali with solid shots to the head and face of Marciano. The Rock has to back off. He can't take too much of it. Now forward again. slip. Hasn't landed that right hand big more than a couple of times this fight. It's the big one. And The Rock gets his licks in that time. Ali taking now. There's the bell. Marciano behind as he comes out here for round 10. And a driving quick start for Marciano, beginning where he left off, a pounding of the body. And he keeps it up, not taking much as he drives him here into the ropes. That is accurate bashing by The Rock. Muhammad Ali undecided whether to flurry with him, guard, or what. Missing his own counters as The Rock keeps it up, a relentless battering of the midsection by Marciano, and the best start he's had this fight. Ali, of course, now trying to get the blood started again, and the pace quickens. Marciano still at the body. And a lacerating of the eyes and the nose, and he's got blood under the nose and along the bridge of Marciano's face. 1 minute gone by here in round 10. Marciano trying to knock the guards down, an old trick of his. And Muhammad beautifully keeps that left peppering in his face. The blood flowing now again. The Rock may have been told to go out and get his man this time. And Ali may be very conscious of that. He is more respectful this round. Less than a minute left to go in round 10. The Rock has been on the attack throughout in this round. Good flurry by Cassius Clay. Good recuperation by Muhammad Ali, and now he's leading. But The Rock drives on. It is a furious round for the Brockton Blockbusters. A slip. Marciano with throttles wide open, and he's down, a left to the jaw. Here's the count, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's the bell. The question is, how much has Muhammad Ali been hurt? How much strength is still there? Marciano immediately hunting the body again and landing solidly. Ali is trapped early, leaping off the ground to pour power into the midsection. That is a brutal blasting. The Rock trying to find the answer for the kill. His punches will jar you and stun you. He has trouble putting the finisher in. A big blasting by Marciano at all points. Solid lefts to the face by Marciano. Missed the right. Looking for the finisher. Trying to wear Ali down, destroy him. And now he's got his own problems. That right eye is cut and bleeding wildly. His face mashed open. Ali sees it.
Ali very strong, apparently with plenty of reserve. Came out of that brutal blasting pretty well. Ali with good ripping combinations. Look at that face. Marciano can't take much more up there. The Rock's vision probably impaired again. Trying to finish him off. And Ali's flurries are hurting. Will he stop it? He let him go. Seconds left. A mashing of the face by Muhammad Ali. A merciless beating by Cassius Clay. And the Rock's still dangerous. There's the bell. Only one opponent has gone the full 15 rounds with Marciano in his career. 2 have gone the full route with Muhammad Ali. Ali counter-punching. Got good shots in that time. And here is a wilting, savage body beating by Marciano. And he is from that tremendous barrage. The referee picking up the count. 4, 5, 6. He'll take the mandatory 8 count. He just wilted before his blows, as Tony Zale did before Marcel Cerdan. Ali was hurt. And he wants him now. Ali has to keep away on speed. 2 minutes left in this round. Marciano mixing up the blasting now. He got 2 good shots to the jaw that time, trying to put the finisher in. Good defensive work by Muhammad Ali, backing away from him. Now Marciano running out of a little bit of gas here. Ali coming back. Beautiful combinations by Muhammad Ali, and he's got that eye busted and the nose busted again. Ali speeding up, in fact. And again, Marciano must go into a shell. 1 minute left in this round. It's been a torrid round. Muhammad Ali trying for the knockout now, leveling that right hand and landing with both hands to face and head. A great round for both men. And look at Marciano pressing forward. Got him trapped again. He is taking. And again appears defenseless. But look at that pulp of a face. A sudden right by Marciano again. That's the right hand he's been trying to unleash all during this fight, and it's driving the head off the shoulders. Tremendous blasting with the right hand by Marciano. His face is battered. What an exchange. There's the bell. The corner has not stopped Marciano's bleeding. Cassius Clay has taken a very enervating battering of the wind reserve. Marciano attacking at all points. That looping left landed on the head right past the guard, and Ali has been hurt. Ali looks out of gas, taking shots now to the body for Marciano. The Rock with a solid right to the jaw that staggers him. A bazooka by Marciano. Ali offering just feeble resistance, but still going. Remarkable. And takes a solid right to the head that staggers him again. He may be going. Ali in deep, deep danger. Trapped here against the ropes by Marciano. Relentlessly.
the rock, and Clay is down. Here's the count. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, very weak. 8, 9, 10. Clay knocked out by Marciano. Apparently the Brockton blockbuster completely defused Muhammad Ali in the previous round. And here found the root for the right hand to the head, finally finishing him off with a looping left hand. Rocky Marciano, a great battle with Muhammad Ali, and still the all-time heavyweight champion.
It was just jubilation. It was like Rocky won his 50th fight, so to speak.
I don't think Super Fight had it right, though. If you really look at Ali's career, he was never knocked out. He was barely ever knocked down. And I think he showed in the 1970s how he could really take a punch with George Foreman and others. Marciano knocked a lot of people out. I don't think he would have knocked Muhammad Ali out.
What this fight proved, what the Marciano Ali non-fight that was kind of a real fight proved, was that the computer was right in the sense that it picked the style of Marciano to beat Ali, which was a short, muscular, very powerful guy who came forward, throwing a lot of body shots, fighting inside, nullifying Ali's speed, cutting the ring, which is a zigzagging motion that makes the ring smaller as you attack. And that was exactly what happened a few months later with Joe Frazier.
I noticed that the next day in the papers, while they told you about the fight, they didn't do it as if it was a fight. It was just an event, a happening, a filming. But it captured and captivated the nation at the time.
Then a couple of days later, some rumors started to appear that in certain areas, a different ending had been shown. And it took me a long time to track down what exactly was that. This has become another one of these myths in boxing, that in, say, the southern states or certain the northern states, Ali would win in Detroit and Marciano would win in other areas. Not true at all. What had happened was that a broadcaster for the BBC reported on this event of, this fight in the movie theaters, and he had gotten somehow a clip of the ending of the fight, or near the ending of the fight, when right before, you'll see in the broadcast, that the doctor comes into the ring and checks Marciano's cuts. And I remember in the theater that night, people were very concerned that the doctor was going to stop the fight on cuts in Ali's favor. In fact, the doctor lets the fight goes on, and Marciano comes back and knocks out Ali. Well, this reporter for the BBC took that moment in time when the doctor comes into the ring and stopped the fight and said, here's the ending. This is what would have really happened. And because of the power of television, that immediately got out and saturated the minds of everyone and was slowly converted into this myth that different endings were shown in different areas. Absolutely not true.
You have to give credit to Murray Warner, the producer, the guy that thought of this thing, and he was true to his word. He let the computer spit out exactly what it felt, what it recorded, and sure enough, Rocky won.
To bring closure to the whole thing, of about 4 or 5 months after the fight was broadcast, Ali appeared on the Dick Cavett show, of all places. And Ali went on and was discussing the results, and he was still unhappy with the fact that he had been knocked out in the 13th round. And one of the things that he said was basically that the computer was racist. It was made in Tennessee or Alabama, wherever it was manufactured, and therefore it would not be able to, do him justice. But he went one step further, and he basically inferred that Murray Warner was also a racist. And Murray Warner closed this whole show by bringing a lawsuit against Muhammad Ali for defamation. And what started as a lawsuit by Ali against Warner ended with a lawsuit by Warner against LA.
Marciano's corner did not stop the bleeding. By contrast, Ali appears fresh, uncut, unhurt. He's never been cut at any time in his career. And swiftly here at work on that bloody pulp. I don't know how much Marciano can see at this point. I dare say not very, very much. A slick 1-2 by Cassius Clay, and drawing more blood. Down the eyes, down the nose. But Marciano still putting up resistance. He doesn't seem to be able to see very well at all. Combinations working now for Muhammad Ali. They did not before. What a wicked slaughtering by Cassius Clay. Blows everywhere. Marciano holding, trying to get those flailing fists out of his eyes. He is pretty far gone. Chris Dundee wants a look. He says that's all. That is it. They're stopping it right here. No question about it, he could not go beyond this stage, not through those befogged and bloodied eyes. And Muhammad Ali, with a great fight, is the new all-time heavyweight champion of the world.
The Ali that fought in '67 at the Garden was a marvelous heavyweight, and when he came back over 3 years later, he still retained a lot of it. But you wonder over that 3-year period, how many great and memorable all-time classic fights might he have been in? And what could he have shown us? Because when he came back, he didn't quite have the same speed or the same maybe killer instinct when he came back that he had left the game with 3 years earlier. When he came back, he lost a little bit of that. That's why you saw him taking more shots. That's why you saw him coming up with a rope-a-dope where he'd lay on the ropes and take those shots. But those were all shots he didn't have to take. Many of the shots Ali took, he took in the gym by clowning around or taking the punches or putting his arms on the sparring partner's shoulders and letting him bang his body. You don't need that. Every shot you take is one lesson you'll take later.
After that super fight, he was banned. When he came back, he never regained the speed. That's why I say Ali is so great, because that's where he demonstrated he had one of the best chins in heavyweight history. And he did have even though people doubted it because he never got hit in his early career, when he did get hit and he fought on with broken jaws and with animals like Joe Frazier, Ken Norton, George Foreman, Ernie Shavers. So, yeah, it was a different Ali. He was easier to hit, and it cost him in the long run.
Well, now we know he had as great a heart as Marciano did. But back then, there was a question mark.
I think the legacy of Rocky Marciano, he's like many others, a sports legend, and there are a zillion sports legends in boxing and otherwise. He personified his age, and I think in the early 1950s, and I think that's one thing about Marciano. But I think the other thing that keeps his legacy alive, I think more than any other athlete in history, he is a monument and he is a testimony to the value of hard work and determination. He was a good athlete, but quite frankly, everything he got, he worked for. Came up from nothing, worked hard, worked, and kept working. And that was his true legacy. And there's never been a harder working person in the history of sports. Marciano made himself a champion and made himself a legend.
As a brother, I go out and speak to youth groups. And I end just about every talk that I give to them by saying, if every young kid had a bigger brother like I did, this world would be a whole lot better place. He was just a great, great brother, great father, a great son, and just an all-around good man.
Marciano's death may have ended his life, his championship Cadillac may have rusted away, his childhood home may have fallen into disrepair, but The Rock's legacy lives on in the annals of the sport and in the hearts of his fans.